To be here. My name is Elay, and it's fabulous. I love coming up to Silicon Slopes. Been up here a lot over the last 2 years, and been up here a lot, talking a lot about sales productivity. And you know what I love about Silicon Slopes, and what I love about the community up here is the family values. And I thought, you know what? Every time I walk into a meeting in any company up here in Utah, everybody always talks about their families. And it's such a great way to kick off a meeting when you meet someone for the first time. How many kids do you have? Where are you from? What? And so I thought I'd start with the same and just let everyone know I'm from Toronto. And what you're seeing here is my dad's furniture store. Way back when I was a kid, my dad had a retail sales furniture store in Toronto. And it's very relevant to this story because you can imagine, you know, a little boy this size, 5 years old, 6 years old, 7 years old, going to work with his dad and being taught how to sell at a very young age and being coached how to sell at a very young age, getting feedback, no better feedback than direct feedback from your dad on, you know, how to sell, how to welcome customers. And it was truly a remarkable experience for me. And it impacted me. And it's these lessons that I learned as a kid with my father, how to sell furniture, I took with me over my entire career. And so you're probably wondering, okay, next generation, sales productivity, a lot of buzzwords. You know, here's what these words mean. They mean and they equal revenue and top line growth. That's what this is about, right? So I'm hoping at the end of today, each of you will walk away with some amazing new ideas, some best practices on how you can drive higher revenue, top line growth in your businesses. And the best way for us to kind of start is to go from that furniture store in Toronto. You know, I'm 45, and so you can imagine how long ago that was. Fast forward a whole bunch of years to 20 years ago, I moved to San Francisco, and then I started at Salesforce.com in 2005. So 2005, I just want everybody for a moment to think about the time period back then. 2005, cloud wasn't sexy. 2005, Salesforce wasn't a brand name. SaaS who? Like, just think about that. And what we needed to do as a business back then was we needed to motivate our teams, we needed to train our teams, we needed to drive so much enablement and onboarding and knowledge sharing that you know, we had to do that. I'm going to tell you what we did, and I'm going to give you the roadmap for how we went from that to what you can do in your businesses today. And so just to kind of set things in perspective, 2005, the revenue run rate was actually, should be 300 million, not 300,000. Sorry, that's a typo. 300 million run rate to about 3 billion. So from 300 million run rate until a 3 billion run rate, which I left about 2013, the beginning of 2013, here's what we did. We trained and onboarded almost 10,000 sales professionals and partners. Just think about that for a second. 10,000 plus professionals came through the doors. They went through boot camp. They were trained. They were certified. They had to learn cloud. They had to learn how to sell CRM. We ran 2 boot camps a month. So these numbers are important. 2 boot camps a month. That's 50 to 100 people would start at the company every 2 weeks. Insane. We hosted hundreds of thousands of deal reviews. That's where you roll up your sleeves and you work with teams. And we certify people twice a year. Now, we're fortunate to have amazing companies here that believe in marketing. Look at Domo, look at Inside Sales. It's amazing, right? 2 great leaders, 2 great companies, 2 great value props, 2 companies that believe in the value of marketing. Back then, 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008, when Salesforce.com would reposition, and we did it a lot, when we would come up with new positioning, new presentations, new materials, you know, my team and I, we'd get brought into Mark Benioff's office. I'm not trying to name drop. That's how important training and onboarding and messaging alignment and getting teams on message was to the organization. We would bring, you know, the team in, and Mark would say, all right, here's the new presentation. Everybody needs to be on message within 30 days. And we would negotiate that time frame. We'd negotiate, the number of slides, and we would negotiate it. But we had to do it. Now, how we did it, 120 people and a $40 million line item annually. That's how we did it. We invested and over-invested, but it's not normal. Most companies today don't have that kind of resources. They don't have those kinds of dollars to invest. And so it got me thinking, there has to be a better way. And, the better way that I thought about was, let's use video, let's use mobile, let's use social, like this idea of salespeople learning from each other. Because, that was the essence of what drove success back at Salesforce. Yes, we had great training. Yes, we had great onboarding. But what we had was a willingness. We had the organization culturally was at a position where they wanted to learn from each other because we had to. We had to share stories. We had to share experiences. We had to share the wins, how to win. When we would lose, we had to share why we lost. And that storytelling became a really big part of the culture. But it's so tough to do without tech. And so today, technology enables you to scale it. The mobile phone's a beautiful thing. And I'm not standing here pitching my product, SalesHood. I've written a book. For those of you that are interested, I'll be signing copies afterwards. It's my gift to you, and would love to hear your feedback on my book. I've also founded a company called SalesHood, which is all about helping companies grow revenue, peer-to-peer. We're all about sharing best practices, but we've done it in a way that enables companies to do it on their phone. And we're fortunate. We've got Domo and Inside Sales and a bunch of other companies here in Utah using it every day. It's pretty cool. But these are my big lessons. These are my big lessons learned from my time at Salesforce. So number one, salespeople learn from each other. I remember we would get survey results from our kickoff events. We would get survey results from the training we would do in regions. And the feedback was, the best part of the training was always, I like hearing the stories. I like understanding how we won. I like understanding what traps we planted. I want to hear from my peers. And that was a big driver of success of that organization, and that's a big driver of success of all the companies we're working with today. The other important lesson, so these lessons, I'm giving them to you because I'm here evangelizing next generation sales productivity, and it's not the tech. In order to make the tech work, you need to fundamentally believe in these principles. Principle number one, that it's beneficial to an organization to get salespeople to share best practices, right? And not everyone believes that. If you fundamentally believe that is a way that you can drive top-line growth, then you're ready to lean in. You're ready to lean into it. Another important thing that we learned over the years, think about when we'd get called into Mark's office, he'd hand us his new presentation. He'd say, everybody needs to get certified. We'd negotiate the time. The only reason why we were able to very quickly get everyone certified and on message, and you know what that means. It's a corporate pitch. Everybody's got to stand and deliver it, and we would do a lot of FaceTime with people. The only way we could do it quickly was we had very good relationships with our frontline managers. And these frontline managers were the ones that carried the weight of the organization. They carried the weight for enablement. They carried the weight for all of the sales execution. And so you can't think about sales productivity without thinking about how effective are my frontline managers and what do they need to be successful. I was at lunch, had someone at Inside Sales, Craig Johnson, one of the sales managers over there say, here are some of the things going on with my team, right? The frontline managers are the ones that know best what the teams need. So a partnership between marketing and frontline managers, really important. A partnership between leadership and frontline managers, really, really, really important. The other thing I know, and it's proven, that when you overinvest in training, that when you decide to take, and no disrespect to marketing dollars, but you can correlate a direct return on investment when you invest in training and sales execution and programs to make managers better, programs to make salespeople better, that, take a little bit of the marketing dollars and move it over, and you'll see some exponential growth. But the other thing I've learned is training is extremely costly. And we spend a lot of money, but for the most part, it's inefficient. So these are the things, and I founded SalesHood. These are the core problems we're solving as a business. Happy to answer questions about the company later, but I've got a checklist of things for you right now that I want to take you through. I want to take you through things. If you, as a community, as a business community, as you go to market, if you want to deliver excellence to your customers, if you want to grow like you've never experienced growth before, these are the things you need to do. Oh, there you go. So I've got two different slide decks here, and so number one, this where are we? So let me just back up for a second. There we go. Okay, so this here, sorry, I just had a little bit of a moment, but we're good. We're back on. It's okay. These are all the companies that are using SalesHood today. We're truly, truly blessed to have a great list of companies. You can see Domo, they're in the room. You can see Inside Sales, they're in the room. They're embracing what I'm about to walk you through. And this is our vision, right? We're all about helping companies accelerate rep productivity, okay? So now that you know who we are, you have a sense of my background, you have a sense of kind of some of my philosophy, some of our philosophies, I'm gonna take you through this 8-point program, right? So number one, you're gonna go back to the office. What am I gonna ask you to do? I'm gonna ask you to think about your sales process. I'm gonna ask you to, you don't need to go buy one. You just need to be thoughtful about what are the steps that are required from us to win. What's our customers? What's our buyer's journey? And you know what? If you haven't written them down, a lot of you are younger in your tenure. It's so important. Write down your sales process. You got to start there. You got to have a documented sales process. Now, what you see here are aspects of a sales process. Things like discovery, asking questions, open-ended questions, layering questions, understanding business pain, right? So think of this as, this is the sales process best practice, but it truly doesn't matter what your sales process is. I just want to make sure that you're factoring in these attributes, that when you're thinking about the problems you're going to solve for your customers, you're asking them questions about their current situation. You're asking them questions about what are the benefits that they want to see from solving these problems. I want to make sure that when you're working with your teams, that you're uncovering decision-making process, evaluation criteria, budget. So you could take this slide, which the slides will be available to all of you. You borrow the pieces that work, but this is the master, right? You want to have as much of this as you can that makes sense for you to go to market. You want to have it documented, and you want to have it available to your teams, right? Because once you as a leadership team, regardless of whether you're a sales or marketing leader, once you have this documented, then you can begin the journey of communicating it, of driving the productivity, of achieving the hypergrowth. And so sales process is number one. So make sure, if that's all you do today is text or email your peer in sales operations and say, let's dust off that document that we wrote 2 years ago and let's refresh it, and as you should. And that sales process is something that is yours, and you want to be able to also, something that is transparent with your customers. Important. It's not like your steps, it's your joint mutual steps with your customers. So that's the sales process. Once you've got a sales process documented, then you got to figure out, how do you communicate that to your teams? And it's not just your sales teams. We're in a sales and marketing track. You know how important it is to be aligned with marketing? You want field marketing. You want product management. You want product marketing. Everybody needs to understand the steps to success. What are the steps to success? How do we win? Why do we win? Because they're ultimately going to give you information. If you're a sales manager and you're feeling like you're the only one focused on productivity, you can use this template. You can use the sales process and these ideas here, product playbooks, industry playbooks. You can use them in a way to bring the entire organization together. When I was at Salesforce, I I stepped into the productivity role. There was no productivity role. If you actually go back to 2005, 2006 and through Google Trends, and you look at the word enablement, it really wasn't a word. So we were pioneering back then because we had to figure out ways to accelerate the growth. And we knew that if we could package up how we win, make it available to our teams in a scalable way, deliver it to them, hand it to them, curate it to them on a silver platter, and then get them to talk to each other, get our teams, and it was proof. It worked. So people talk about playbooks, but you can't build a playbook unless you know your sales process. And then you want to educate your organization on the sales process, and that's sales and marketing and customer success and all that goodness. So I'm just, these are stepping stones, right? The next stepping stone is, I gotta go the right way. The next stepping stone is training, right? You don't just throw people in a room and say, hey, I'm gonna train you. What are you gonna train them on? That's why the sales process is good to get done first. You want to document it so that way folks have information to reinforce. How cool would it be if the way you sell actually started showing up on the website as well? You had common language, right? So what we want to impress upon is training isn't have someone sit in a room for an hour and then check a box and say you're training. That's old school training. Modern training is give folks a little bit of video to watch. Give folks a little quiz to do on their phone. Give folks the ability to collaborate as a team, come together as a group. After watching the video, bring them together and then let them talk about it. Modern training is about giving people the ability to go and reinforce the knowledge on an ongoing basis, not just once, right? So if you roll out a new sales process, what you want to start doing is you want to roll out the process, make it available to your teams, and then what you want to do is you want to bring your teams together so they can talk about what's working, what's not working. They can apply it to their actual deals. And that's what we do. You saw back in the Salesforce days, we had hundreds of thousands of deal reviews. We did a ton of training, but it was never perceived as training, because we would always do it in the context of deals and pipeline, and that's important. So just impressing upon you to kind of get out of our old way of learning and think about a modern way of learning. It's short, it's bite-sized, it's micro-learning. Don't try and do too much. Get rid of the fire hose metaphor, and now it's just like chunkable little cookie-like snacks that folks can consume, learn, iterate, and tweak, and then keep refining their process and keep refining their trade. It's important. The other piece that we did over the years, and all those companies that you talk about do all the time, is practice. And, we talk about practicing. We talk about it a lot. We talk, we gotta practice the pitch, and we gotta practice that customer presentation. But you know what happens? You don't, because there isn't a formal way to do it. It's not part of the culture. You haven't embraced this idea. So this slide is here because practicing is really important to me. If you're thinking sports, you don't walk on the field without practicing for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. If you're, a musician, you don't get on stage without practice and practice and practice and practice and practice. The same is true. Why would we want our sales teams getting up in front of a customer, going through a presentation for the first time without practicing it a bunch, without hearing feedback, constructive feedback? And so this has been, the technical problem that I initially sought out to solve was making it fun and engaging for people to practice their trade, whether it's a pitch, whether it's a story, whether it's a deal win, whether it's a demonstration. Think about all the conversations your sales teams are having. How do we get them to practice it in a way that's value add to them professionally? And so the stats here are pretty remarkable. So 15,000 sales professionals, billions of dollars of business. 2016, we had about 2 million minutes, and we correlated. We did a little bit of data analysis, and we correlated the amount of pipeline generated and quota attainment for teams that embraced practicing and took it seriously. And what happened was the correlation is very high. Now, what's more interesting is people think it's homework, right? You're probably thinking, practice, it's homework, it's pain. Actually, the data here shows this. If you package up your pitches and your messages into small, remember the micro-learning, chunked up, small bite-sized chunks, not the 30, 40 slides that we used to do back in the day at Salesforce. Small, right? 3 slides, go. 10 slides, go. 4 slides, go. Elevator pitch, go. If you do them short, if they're 5 minutes or less, your salespeople will practice 5 times. Just think about that for a second, and that's proven data. Then, if you've got a system to track it, they will peer review 10, meaning they will go and look at 10 of their peers because they want to learn from them, right? And I knew this was true because when we did all the survey results over the years at Salesforce, I knew this was true. We get the survey results, and the survey results would say, I love the stories. I love hearing the messages. I love hearing my peers share how they win. And the data proves it. But the point is, you just got to make it accessible and digestible. And that's the main message I want to leave with all of you. And then they'll watch 20. So you want to talk about messaging alignment, getting your team motivated, getting your teams ready for battle in the marketplace. Sales process. You got to get them the right content, the right playbooks. Then you got to train them over and over and over. Then you got to give them a forum to practice. And then after you practice, then you got to lean on the managers for reinforcement. Remember, these are the lessons learned from the behemoth of SaaS, Salesforce.com. We just took all these lessons and we've codified them here for you. So what we want you to do is to really lean on your first-line managers to deliver coaching on a regular basis. Coaching shouldn't be seen as something that is separate. The idea of getting sales teams to share best practices is something that happens informally in one-on-ones. I'm just saying, up-level it, formalize it, make it part of the cadence of the rhythm of your business. And you know, when your managers run their weekly team calls and they're going to go through the deals, that's great. Make sure there's time there where someone's sharing best practices, and that's where you can reintroduce some of that content. Make the content available to the managers to use in their team meetings. And so, as we continue down this path, what we want you to then do is to think about, okay, so we've got the sales process, we've got great content in their hands, we've trained them, they've practiced, our managers are good to go, but it doesn't stop there. You need to create a forum, a space for your people to share their wins on a regular basis. And you can do this in a number of ways. You know, everybody's got those gongs and you ring the virtual bell, but make it be more than just a gong. Make it be more than just a rah gratitude email. Create a culture of sharing knowledge. Get your teams to share their experiences on a regular basis. I don't want you to overlook this part of the puzzle. It's so important because this is ultimately where you're going to find those jewels. Marketing loves this, right? If you can figure out a way to get your teams to share their stories and their wins and what's working, what's not working on a regular basis, that's going to be directly impact, you know, all of your go-to-markets and your top-line revenue. And then finally, I say this one, you know, second last. I say this one for second last. A lot of people will start and they'll be like, oh my God, we needed onboarding. We're going to hire 5 new reps this month. We're going to hire 20 this quarter. And they kind of fixate on the onboarding. But what they don't realize is you can't build an onboarding unless you've done everything else. You need a core sales process. You need the content configured and created for you in a way that's going to be digestible. You need these win stories because if you do an onboarding that's just theoretical, you know, the best thing you can do is figure out a way to get all these deal wins packaged up, organized, so that way when you do hire someone new, you've got answers to all these questions, and it's from your top performers. Sales process, competition. So there's a framework here. Every one of these sections I talked about, there's a chapter of it in my book. And, you know, I could do a whole day just on this deck and go through and spend an hour session on each one of these. This is deep, but I wanted to give you a flavor of what best practice, next generation sales productivity is all about. And it goes without saying, you know, you can't do all this and not have a way to measure the ROI. We want you to, from the very beginning, culturally know if we roll out training or we roll out content or we roll out a program or whatever we do, that you're doing the correlations. You know, we're working closely with our friends at Domo, right? They've rolled out a whole bunch of awesomeness. And that's, you know, we're not going to keep going until we figure out those correlations. Domo does it beautifully. That's what their system is there for. You've got all these different data sources, and not trying to, you know, talk too much about Domo, but that's what this is about. So you take your processes, you take your content, you take your performance, you take your best practices, you measure it, and then you know with confidence with confidence what's working and what's not working, so that way you can adjust your plan. We did this at Salesforce, but we did it with brute force. 120 people, that was just my team. There was another 100 people crunching the numbers on a monthly basis. But we knew what was working, but it was really hard to do. And now tech allows you to do it at scale, and it's pretty exciting. So key success factors, just 5 of them. I'm a big believer in just picking a sales process. Ideally, it's your own. You've sourced it from your top performers, but make it your own. I'm a big believer in not rolling out productivity programs that are dependent on the frontline manager to help. So there's a partnership. Big believer in exec sponsorship. I didn't really talk a lot about that, but I talked about it indirectly. If you think about the Salesforce days, how Mark would drive the messaging, and then our senior leadership team. Like my role on executive sponsorship, I reported to the CRO. So sales enablement was an SVP level role, and it was very innovative back then. And we over-invested in it because we knew, but we couldn't have never done it without the executive sponsorship. We look at our friends at Domo, Josh James and Chris Harrington believe in sales productivity. They're the ones that said we're going to embrace all these principles. So executive sponsorship is critical. And then, we talk about sharing, but it's hard. And it takes time, but it's something that, the way that you drive a culture of sharing is to basically create safe places. It's okay to let people share their experiences and just not blasting them all the time for not hitting numbers. It's just safe zone, safe zone. And then finally measure everything. So that's my talk. I am grateful that the team asked me to come speak. I'm always evangelizing next generation sales productivity. I hope some of you were able to glean some best practices that you can take back into your businesses and make Silicon Slopes truly the amazing hub that it is and where it's going to continue to be as it grows. So with that, I think that's it for now. Thank you. I believe we have Q&A. If anyone wants to ask a question about my background, about kind of the things I talked about, anything at all, I'm happy to take questions. There's a question way back there, burgundy jacket. Why don't you say hello, introduce yourself?
Hi, Bryce. Exactly, work with Health Catalyst. Just curious, you said you had some books that you've written.
Yes.
Name of it?
Yeah, so, in branding, you make decisions. So I decided to call my book SalesHood, and I got the company called SalesHood. We were doubling down on the SalesHood brand. So here's the book, and then I'll be outside signing books for those of you that want it, Bryce. The name SalesHood is an interesting name. After I left Salesforce, I was sitting on a train, and I was reading all of the thank you notes from the years, looking for inspiration for kind of what I'd call this next generation sales productivity. And the words that bubbled up were, you connected me with teams around the world, you connected me with the stories, felt like I knew what other people around the world were doing, and I thought, what is that word? And I landed on this word called selfhood, which basically meant the fully developed self, one with nature. So I thought, that's amazing. What we want to do is we want to create a global sales organization that's completely connected, sharing best practices all the time. And the best thing was March 2013, the URL was available. And so that's a sign saying, go crazy, Elay. Thank you for the question, and I'll have a signed copy for you. In the pink shirt.
So,
what's your name?
Jake, sorry.
Jake.
The question I have is, I love this concept of the culture of sharing and your salespeople talking back and forth. What if you have like a high-performing salesperson that doesn't like to share any tips on? They have their secrets that they're closing deals. They feel like everybody's competing. Do you have any secrets?
Yeah.
What do you do, or do you just let that person go?
So, question, I'll repeat it. Sharing, caring, best practice, knowledge sharing, it's great. And what happens when folks are keeping things close and they don't want to share? It's a general conception. It's a general belief that it's a dog-eat-dog world when it comes to salespeople and they don't want to share. Now, in the financial services space, when you're dealing with brokers that are competing for customers, then, this idea of sharing best practices and sharing knowledge, it's not going to work as well. And even the idea of sharing contacts in a CRM system doesn't work well in those markets either. We've seen the opposite. We've seen the salespeople that are really successful, that have killing their quota, that aren't able to stand up and show their W-2s because that's not appropriate. But we've had them feel like it's good for their brand. It's good karma. It's good for them to share. It's good for them to share kind of the wins. And so the data has shown the opposite. It's the seasoned sales folks. It's completely, you would think it's the opposite. But it's actually the more seasoned sales professionals that are used to the old way of training where you got to sit there and hope you get the information. They're the ones that know that, oh, wow, you know what? In this new world of training when things are video recorded and you can collaborate and you can share knowledge and all that goodness, record your pitches and give each other feedback, they know this is something that folks haven't had before. And so they're willing to contribute. And I specifically had a conversation. Aptus is a customer of ours, and this topic came up with their senior sales leadership. And what they said was they underestimated how much the idea of senior people sharing turned into a brand exercise for them to share and build their brands organizationally. The other benefit for some of the more senior folks, besides the good karma, is when you want to get resources from marketing or engineering or products that, pointing them to, I did a recording of my deal win, or pointing them to, here's a presentation I used before, that's positive. And so there are a lot of benefits personally, professionally at the brand level, and also just access to info that I believe makes that statement not necessarily be true when you look at the data for it. But we can chat more about it. And question over here, how you doing?
So my team is 2 people on sales, right? It's really small. Is it focusing on those kind of initial process things that's most important? Or what do you do when you're a small team? How do you sort of, build things from the tiniest level when you're not even Salesforce?
You always need to have a documented sales process. So what I've seen with other tech companies that have 1 or 2 salespeople is it's truly the idea of winning as a team, and it takes a village. That's when the founders, the product leaders, they're part of the sales team. So it's even more important then to share the sales process, to document the sales process, to get it codified, and to have them be part of it. Right? Like how cool would it be if it's great to get salespeople to record and practice their pitches, but how cool is it when you get the founders to do it? I was once working with another company, and all the sales leadership, they all recorded their pitches, and they 2-minute, and it was great. They all did okay, but I'm a believer in executive sponsorship, and so we pulled in the founders, and there were 3 of them, and the presentation that did the best was the technical founder, the CTO, thoughtful, very calm, wasn't pitchy, from the heart. And those 8 leaders that watched it just transformed them. And so, I would look at sales and marketing and sales productivity as a company-wide initiative. If you've got 1 or 2 people, great. You know what? There's some great best practices out there. Happy to contribute. You can start opening up chapters in the book and just say, let's implement chapters 4 through 6, or 7 through 9. That's our new sales process. It's basic blocking and tackling, discovery, compelling events, prospecting best practices, but just pick something, focus on it, document it, and then know it's going to change within a week. And that's okay. It keeps changing. In the middle.
My name's Jeffrey.
Hey, Jeffrey.
Same going off with the small sales. What do you think is the best way to train new sales in B2Bs? I'm accustomed to, being thrown in the fire, and it's worked well for me, and I've learned a lot, but that doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah, so the way that I would train new salespeople on kind of a B2B sales motion, is that the question? Yeah, so the order and the sequence with which I outline things was start with your sales process, then document your playbooks, then build out your training, and then kind of figure out a way to capture the deal wins and the best practices and how people talk about how people do their pitches, and then take all that great content, all that great knowledge, and then create a 30, 60, 90-day program. And then what I would do is I would simulate your sales process across an onboarding. So for example, you know what stage one people need to do. I'm not gonna go that level of detail. There are 5 stages. So basically you wanna not throw your salespeople, here's our sales process, here it is, and give it to them on day one and say, okay, go. I would space it out. And basically let's let you learn about our team. Like if I go back and you look at this slide, there are things here. These are all the pieces of a 30, 60, 90-day training program. You need to figure out ways to get all this information from your company. And then what you want to do, and you see time on the bottom, we want you to sequence it out. So that way it's not all done in the first day. So if you have a 90-day sales cycle, then that's perfect, because then you can basically, within the first couple weeks, you can get your salespeople starting to practice the sales motion. So for example, stage one, prospecting. They've understood the culture of your business, they know your product, they've been trained, but they don't really know your sales process. So, give them a couple accounts, and part of their training is to be call shadowed around how do they do the outreach. Part of the training should be, okay, you got to go find someone on the team that has some calls, and you need to listen to some of their calls. And so sales process mapped across a timeline with reinforcement content that comes from the organization and is crowdsourced is the way I would do it. 48 seconds. I got a question here.
Smart companies are moving toward inbound marketing automation, and out of that has come inbound sales methodology. Do you have any examples of marketing and sales teams that have come together and seen great results? Any specific examples?
So, I would say most of the companies that are achieving, so I'm trying to figure out, when you say come together. So, okay, so there's a specific example. There's a company called Telligis. Telligis is based in SoCal, and Telligis does B2B navigation, really complex, hairy stuff. They got these machines, they got these little gadgets that live in trucks, and that way you can track the efficiency, and it's basically, they're selling to Coke. The Coke fleet has this little thing and they got visibility. Okay, so that's the company, right? The productivity actually is driven from marketing. And so it's not like it's a sales ops. So Telligis is a great example because from day one, and they were just acquired by Verizon for $2 billion. And so they were acquired because they figured out their sales motion, and they figured out how to take the marketing messages and the marketing and the sales process and have the sales process and the marketing process be one. And that's what they did. And Kelly Fry is the person. He spoke at our conference, and we've got a great video. I'll make sure you get access to it. But, I love it. I love that. There are a ton of examples where sales productivity isn't just something that lives inside of sales ops. A lot of people think, it's an HR learning problem. Some people think it's a sales ops, and different companies have it living in different places. The most forward-thinking organizations have it living in marketing too. And so I think it's a problem. We're not ready. We're not there yet, for all companies to do it. But even Domo, for example, you've got beautiful partnership between the sales leadership and the marketing leadership and content, reference stories, things like that are created by marketing are available to salespeople and are part of the onboarding. And Domo's a great example. You got a couple of folks here, like Kyle sitting right there, raise his hand. He can share with you how they've bridged the gap between marketing and sales. The clock keeps changing on me. Let me take any questions over there. I haven't been, question, hi.
When can we get your presentation afterwards?
So let me do the it's how do we get these presentations out to everyone? You know what, very simple. Let's bombard me with emails. I'll create a PDF, Elay at saleshood.com. You can tweet me and say send it to me, private message me, or you can email me, and I'll more than gladly send them to you. I don't want to undermine the process for sharing the content and the videos that are happening here with the Silicon Slopes, but sharing is what I'm all about. There was a hand here. Okay, go ahead. Last one. I'm sorry, I'll go slower. Elay. Let's just get to the very, very beginning. I think I have it on the front, or maybe I don't. Elay at saleshood.com. So my name is spelt Elay, Elay at saleshood.com. Email me and I'll flip you the PDF. Be my pleasure. And I'm going to be out back. I've got 30 books to sign and happy to contribute, happy to share. I'm so excited to be here. Congratulations for everyone and go Silicon Slopes. Yeah.